Hello and welcome back to Movie Recap. Today I'm going to show you The Intouchables, a 2011 biography, comedy, and drama film. There will be spoilers ahead. Keep an eye out and be cautious. Driss is driving his boss Philippe through the city late one night in Paris. When waiting in traffic becomes too tedious, Driss deviates from the speed limit and begins driving at a high rate, evading other vehicles and disregarding traffic signs. The cops pursue him, and Driss wagers €100 that he can lose them. However, after driving beneath a bridge, the cops ambush them from both sides, and they are apprehended. Driss, on the other hand, appears unconcerned, and this time he bets €200 that he can find them an escort. When the authorities order him out of the car, he becomes enraged and tells them Philippe is unable to move and that he is transporting him to the hospital. The officers discover proof of this when they discover a wheelchair in the truck and see Philippe convulsing, which is also an act. Because it's an emergency, the cops forgive Driss for exceeding the speed limit and offer to accompany him to the hospital. Driss plays September by Earth, Wind and Fire to celebrate winning the bet, and when they get at their location, he shares a cigarette with Philippe as soon as the cops leave. Driss pledges to take care of it and drives them away just as the medical staff arrives. This friendship has been going on for a long time. Philippe and his assistant Magali are holding interviews to find him a new caretaker, but it's not going well because all of the applicants have extremely typical or embarrassing responses to their interview questions. But they're taken aback when Driss bursts in, oblivious to the fact that it isn't yet his turn, because all he wants are some papers signed indicating they won't hire him so he can collect unemployment benefits. He's frank and a little disrespectful, even making sexual advances toward Magali, but Philippe finds him amusing and invites him back the next day to pick up his signed documents. Driss returns to his modest home in a rundown area and tries to take a bath as his younger siblings pester him. He only manages to finish in time thanks to his elder sister Mina, who is more responsible. While waiting for his mother to come, he spots his brother Adama exiting a suspicious vehicle through the window. When the child enters the flat, he just states that he was at school and then leaves after taking his bag, making Driss even more convinced that he is up to something. When his mother arrives in the evening, he presents him with a Faberge egg he stole and tells her he's been on vacation when she inquires. She's not overjoyed to see him because he's been missing for 6 months and hasn't phoned, and now he's popped out of nowhere, as if her house were a hotel. She pushes him out and warns him not to come back because she's had enough of his lies and she has other children to look after. Driss spends the night with some neighborhood pals, smoking and snacking. Driss returns to Philippe's house the next day for his paperwork, and he is greeted by Yvonne, the housekeeper, who shows him around and tells him about Philippe's daily routine. She also shows him the room he would have for himself, complete with its own bathroom. Driss can't take his gaze away from the bathtub before being brought to Philippe, who not only gives the signed sheet of paper, but also a job prospect. Philippe bets Driss won't last 2 weeks after he accepts the 1-month trial. Driss is instructed how to care for Philippe after delivering his belongings to his room. He'll have to learn how to keep his legs active, how to get him into his wheelchair, and how to assist him with showering and changing his clothes. When Driss realizes he has to put on high stockings and even wipe Philippe's butt after he uses the bathroom, things get unpleasant, but no matter how much he complains and claims he won't do those chores, he eventually accepts them as part of his work. Later that evening, he is disturbed by Philippe's daughter Elisa and her boyfriend Bastien, who are looking for a private place to make out, and he kicks them both out after refusing to share his beer. Driss rapidly adjusts to Philippe's daily routine, even though he makes a few mistakes that he learns from, such as passing the phone to Philippe instead of placing it on his ear or forgetting the baby monitor while bathing. He also learns to sort his mail into distinct folders. He opens most of the letters for Philippe, but there are a few that he isn't permitted to see. Instead of discarding a flyer offering female escorts in the garbage, he decides to make a file exclusively for them, as Philippe suggests. Driss nevertheless makes an effort to have a nice time in his new life, attempting to hit on Magali to no avail, and occasionally calling escorts to join him in bed. After Yvonne arrives to his room to chastise him for being late, she discovers some frightening weapons in his backpack, but she remains silent. Driss' job today is to drive Philippe around, but he won't put him in the back of a van like cargo, so he puts him in one of the beautiful cars that aren't used very often. Philippe, who at first believes this isn't appropriate and advises them to be pragmatic, is soon enthralled by the prospect of a faster, less boring voyage, despite Yvonne's disapproval. When they try to exit the building, a neighbor parks in front of their door, despite the fact that it is prohibited by the notice on the door. Driss doesn't waste any time, seizing the man by the front of his shirt and frightening him until he moves the car. Philippe is impressed by his activities, but Yvonne disapproves once again. The two visit a museum, where Philippe intends to purchase a work of art that Driss believes isn't worth the money because it's just a red splotch on the canvas. After that, Philippe meets with a relative, who informs him that everyone is concerned about Driss due to his aggressive tendencies. Philippe doesn't mind that he has a criminal record, he admires Driss because he doesn't pity him and isn't afraid to joke about with him. Driss has dinner with Yvonne in the kitchen after another failed effort at hitting on Magali, while Philippe dictates a letter to Magali. Yvonne switches off the baby monitor, claiming it's a private talk, and goes on to describe what's going on. Philippe has pen pals with a woman named Eleanor, and it was her letters that he refused to let Driss open. But he's never met Eleanor in person, theirs is solely an epistolar relationship. Before retiring to bed, Driss teases Yvonne about the looks the gardener gives her all the time. Philippe is having problems breathing, and he's trying to sleep when he hears strange sounds coming from the baby monitor. Driss walks to his room and slowly guides him through the attack with soothing words and a wet cloth to wipe his face, unable to ignore him no matter how hard he tries. Philippe eventually falls asleep, only to awaken moments later, stating that he requires fresh air. Driss doesn't waste any time this time, he straps Philippe into his wheelchair, wraps him in blankets, and takes him for a stroll down the river. Philippe explains to Driss that the medicine can only do so much and that he sometimes experiences phantom pain. This is the first time Philippe has seen Paris at night in a long time, and now that he's more relaxed, he explains that the medicine can only do so much. When they see some girls walking by, Philippe admits that because of his situation, he is unable to pleasure a woman, but he can get some satisfaction by having his ears massaged because they are sensitive zones. When the phantom agony reappears, Driss offers Philippe one of his joints, which he initially dismisses but eventually enjoys. After that, they head to a restaurant and have a good time while eating, and Philippe decides to tell them more about his story. He met his wife while they were both students, and shortly after they married, she suffered 5 miscarriages and was diagnosed with a terminal illness. Elisa was adopted at that time. Philippe has always been interested in competitions, extreme sports, and speed, and a paraglider provided him with all of these things. Bad weather prompted him to crash and break his vertebrae while paragliding, however he still believes his actual handicap isn't the chair but life without his wife. Philippe remembers the date after some more joking around and realizes Driss has completed his 1-month trial and is now officially hired. But he must first return the Faberge egg he took, which was a gift from his wife. She would give him one every year, and he has 25, which corresponds to their time together. Driss approaches Mina as she leaves school the next day, who is irritated since he hasn't responded to her messages except to ask her to seek for the egg. She also informs him about some cops who have been phoning their house. He then goes to Adama, who admits that he was found with 30 grams on him. Driss offers to take Adama to lunch, but Adama declines and instead boards the same suspicious vehicle as before. Driss is later allowed to be present while Philippe dictates Eleanor's letter to Magali. He feels Philippe should be more plain with his purple prose, and he's perplexed that this has been going on for 6 months and they've never shared images. When he discovers her phone number on one of the letters, he interprets it as a sign and dials her number, forcing Philippe to pick up the phone and speak to her outside of the written word. Philippe is now constantly on the phone with her, even right before he and Driss go to the opera, where Driss laughs and makes fun of the clothes. Driss persuades Philippe to accept an exchange of photographs with Eleanor the next day, and he chooses a photograph of him in his wheelchair. Elisa comes into his room later, when he's painting, to ask for cigarettes and make fun of him for trying to be artistic. He throws her out after becoming enraged, then goes to meet Philippe, who is currently requesting that Yvonne replace the chosen picture with one of him when he wasn't quadriplegic. Driss bursts in, screaming about Elisa and telling Philippe he needs to discipline her, which Yvonne agrees with. She hides the image within the escort file just before Driss bursts in, complaining about Elisa and telling Philippe he needs to discipline her. Philippe agrees to speak with her, but he's taken aback when Driss reveals that he's been painting. Days pass, and Philippe and Driss' friendship grows stronger. Philippe gets him his first suit and scolds his daughter while Driss listens to him on the baby monitor. Driss takes him to play in the snow and carries him with him when he goes for a run. Driss shows Magali his first painting when he finishes it, but she slaps him when he tries to kiss her. Philippe, on the other hand, enjoys the artwork and vows to sell it. They had a terrific